Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Road to Becoming a Voice Actor podcast. I'm your host today, Collin, and today I'm here with Michael Alio,
Hey, hey.
Giana Lynn,
Hello.
and Civil.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about auditions. Now, let's just jump right into it with the first segment about it, and I'm going to point this first question at you, Giana. And it's, how do we prepare for an audition? What are some things that you keep in mind when you're auditioning for something?
Okay, when I jump into an audition, I like to first read the description of the project and then, the description of the character, and then finally move on to the lines. Because what you want to keep in mind is the character, where they come from, their appearance. So you can take all of these things into consideration when you decide to go about how you're going to deliver each line.
Okay, so you're talking about things like their appearance, where they come from. Do you ever physically get into your acting whenever you're doing this sort of thing? Like, get into a character physically, even though you're just voice acting with it?
Oh yeah, all the time. Because I started with stage acting, so I'm used to like fully embodying the character. So I might just be sitting here in my chair, but I'm also Italian, so I speak with my hands. so, so like I'll be doing hand stuff or like looking in different directions, even though it's like I'm really just looking around my bedroom. But no, yeah, I really try to like fully embody the character, um, not just in my voice.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, wonderful. And I think I'm going to point that same question at you now, Michael. And the question again is, what are some things you keep in mind when you're voice acting?
Well, I think with auditions in particular, it really depends. A lot of it is context based. I know for character reads, it's something where I'll kind of try and think in my head of like some sort of equivalent I've seen on, like, in whatever context it is for the particular read. Like, for a commercial read, I will honestly listen to like a piece of music that I think would kind of fit the commercial spot. Uh, for example, you see all those commercials for Ford where it's always like it's stereotypical guitar strumming, but that's on a lot of car commercials where that's the mood that they're trying to go for. So that will honestly help me get what I want to sound like in mind for that read. And I found that it even helps, no matter what, sans narration auditions. Listening to music will actually help you get in the frame of mind for what you want to record.
Okay, yeah. So basically, you're just setting the tone for whatever it is you're going for just by listening to the kind of music that's very stereotypical for that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Even if it's like, I honestly got the idea from watching like the Beyond Stranger Things, ironically, where it's on Netflix, and the director for the show, he talks about doing this constantly to get the actors in the mood for a particular scene. Like, I know, if it's a particularly intense chase scene, he'll play some really grating, creepy music in order to get the actors really to feel that fear before he starts the camera. So I thought that that was an interesting approach to take. So I've honestly tried to do that with my own sort of side thing that I'm doing here with voice acting. And I found that it actually helps.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of actors actually use music as a way to get into characters. For instance, I saw an interview with Stephen Ogg, which, for anybody who doesn't know him, he's the voice actor for Trevor in Grand Theft Auto 5. He said that whenever he was getting into character for Trevor, he would always listen before going on set to City and Color, which is an acoustic sounding solo artist from Canada. I thought that was really interesting because he said that he listened to City and Color because he personally felt like that softer music made him completely open and vulnerable as an actor, which I thought was weird getting into a character like Trevor. But he said that once he's completely broken down and in his emotions, he can create any character from that point, whether it's the same as the music or not.
Like, I
So,
honestly would not see that. The dude's a psychopath in the game.
yeah, I was shocked
Yeah,
whenever I heard that that's what he listens to, but if it works for him, I guess you can't argue with the results in the game.
no, I can't at all. He was definitely spot on as the character in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, and with that same question, do you have anything that you look at differently, Civil? Things that you keep in mind whenever you're auditioning?
I mainly do like listen to music as well, but before that, mainly for characters at least, I based on the description and stuff, I get an image in my head and base it off of that. So I'm like, okay, well, what would this person do in situations? Like just whatever I do in real life, like walking, how do they walk, and kind of trying to match it to a piece of music.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and on that same note, I've got a friend who just has a collection of kind of stock images, like Shutterstock style pictures of different people, different characters. And I know that every time he's developing a character, he just pulls up this huge library and he's like, which of these pictures looks like they would be that character? And then he develops a voice based on looking at these images and being like, what would they sound like?
Prints out a full screen image and plasters it over his face.
Oh no. Please, no.
He's got a drawer in his room full of masks.
Wow. Okay, and with that, we're going to move on to the next question about that preparing for an audition. And I'm going to jump back to you, Michael, real quick on this one. Do you just jump right into an audition head first, or do you take time to get comfortable with the character, or say the lines before you record it?
Yeah, I definitely take my time with an audition because I never get a first read right. Like, that's never happened where I've done like one take and gone, okay, that's good. I'll always go, wait, I can do it better. Um, and I think that's kind of the beauty of voice acting as opposed to normal acting. Like, when you're in front of like a casting director, you'll often just you get one chance basically. But with a lot of the voice acting websites right now, like you go on Casting Call Club, Behind the Voice Actors, or even the pay to play sites like Voices 123. You're the one submitting your audition to the casting director, so it's on you really to put your best foot forward, and that's how I approach it. I don't just immediately rush into submitting my audition. I will take the time to make sure that it's uh, the best that I could have possibly done for the particular read.
Yeah, I get you, and I'm I relate to that a lot. Sometimes if it's like a day where I'm trying to pump out several auditions looking for work, some of them I'm like, oh, this is a pretty small part. It's a fairly easy read. I'm just gonna jump in, see what's going on with it, see if they like my initial take. But even at that, I still listen back and I'm like, is this good enough, this first take to put in, or should I stop and redo?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I approach it, man. So and I would say, that's probably the way you should if you're trying to get work, put your best foot forward. Don't just shotgun approach to like your voice acting auditions, You gotta do your best, and that's what people will look for.
Oh yeah, and I know that I personally just do one big long take whenever I'm auditioning for things. Like I'll start recording from the second that I start reading, just in case that first take is really good. I want to still have it, so I'll just record the whole thing and cut out everything that's irrelevant, which I kind of take that approach to everything.
Oh
If you
yeah.
guys have seen my YouTube, the intros are always something of me just
Yeah.
talking because I was recording.
I
Um,
I totally, you know, I'll, like for a one-line read, I'll probably have like a 5-minute long um, recording, just because I'm trying to nail down the perfect segment there. But yeah, it's definitely a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
editing. I'm not gonna
Oh
lie.
yeah. Every voice in there from Darth Vader to Julia Child going on. It's great. And I think I'm going to point that same question now at you, Civil, which is, do you just jump right into an audition, or you take the time to get comfortable saying the line before you record it?
But for me, it definitely depends on how big the role is and how much the character relates to a character I already play in something else. So like if it's something brand new that I've never done before and it's pretty big, I'll definitely take my time. But if it seems very similar to something I'm already doing, I just kind of base it off of that. And sometimes I go for a one shot, and it turns out decent. But most of the time I don't, I guess. But it very much depends.
Okay, yeah. And I'm kind of the same. Sometimes, like, I've had, especially in the same studio that I'm working with, I've had directors say, hey, so I really like what you're doing with X character in this show. And we've got a very similar character going on in this new series that we're working on, and I want you to audition for it. So, for those, as a general rule, I'll just kind of get the line down to where I can say it without fumbling over my words for an hour. And then I'll just record it straight in the exact same voice and then come back and develop it as a different character a little more later on.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that honestly makes a lot of sense. I guess you guys have been doing this a lot longer than me. So I guess, I'm just kind of wondering, when did you like first feel comfortable just submitting your first take for auditions, honestly? Because I've never even considered doing that yet.
I know for me, it's generally only with people that I've worked with before that I submit my first take. Unless it's just a really, really good first take. Like, if somebody knows my voice, they don't necessarily have to have my absolute best ironed out, I've got this character down, because they already know that I'm going to take the time to develop it if they give me the part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Building
Yeah, but
relationships, man. That's
yeah, but
definitely
that's only if I've got a good relationship with someone developed already.
gotcha.
Okay. And were you saying something, Civil?
No,
Oh, okay. I thought I heard you talk.
no.
Okay. And then you, Gianna, do you take the time to get comfortable or just start recording?
I try to take the time to get comfortable. Sometimes I do start recording just to see what I can play around with, but I usually never submit my first take because sometimes, and I've found myself, especially recently, whether it's a character read or a commercial read or a narration read, I take a step back while I'm reading the lines and I think to myself, this isn't just a voice or these aren't just words. Like you have to feel I know this is going to sound so like theater class, but like you have to feel the motivation behind every word and know the emotion behind it and that asking questions like, well, I forget exactly what role it was I was auditioning for the other day, but I had a moment where I was like, no, like really really think about what she's saying. Like I think it was her brother told her that when they got older that he would die to protect her, and she's telling him like very calmly like, well, you won't have to because I'm going to be strong too when I grow up. And I'm like, you have to really think about how she would react to her brother saying this. Like it's not just putting on the teenager voice, the typical whatever teenager voice. It's like you have to really strongly think about the delivery and the motivation behind each line. So I really take the time to ask myself these questions and develop what voice goes with whatever project it is I'm going for before I just decide it's ready for submission.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's a good point. You need to know what the characters are doing. And I think on that note, it's like also a matter of what exactly are you auditioning for? Because, like Michael was talking about earlier, car commercials,
Mhm.
you're not going to be quite as motivated as a character
Right.
except to sell cars as you are with a character.
I think
So,
honestly, the motivation it's you want to believe what you're saying, even if
Yes.
it's like a commercial. You want to believe in that this actually is worth a purchase, like for a
Mm-hmm.
commercial.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was doing a
definitely.
commercial audition read the other day, and piggybacking off of what Mike said earlier, I was like, you know, what would really help me get into this is if I just slapped some royalty-free commercial music behind it, and it got me straight into like upbeat narration commercial mode. It's really amazing what music can do for audition and acting preparation.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think with commercials, it's a lot easier to get in the character because it's like, oh well, this motivation's exactly the same as
Hmm.
the last reason I was selling this exact same car.
Yeah.
You're never gonna
So,
listen to death metal for a car commercial.
oh, why not? Just that is the most metal car. I'm gonna
Buy
buy it
this
right
car right
now.
now.
Buy the
Ah.
thing, it does the thing.
Wow. Okay. And I think with that, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is all about how often should voice actors audition. And I'm going to start this one off with you, Civil, asking, should you limit how many projects you audition for per day whenever you're auditioning?
I that I think depends on your personal situation. If you have the time and the drive and the voice capability, without obviously your voice dying, to do like a boatload, definitely do it because it gets it can get your name out there, but it can also backfire a little bit. But definitely, if you don't have it, yeah, it just depends on how available you are. You need to work with your availability. Don't try and work around what you might conceive as, okay, I need to be able to do this much.
Okay, yeah. So just basically what you're saying is you need to put out the quality content you can, but not push past that, all depending on your schedule.
Yeah, make sure you can do enough quality stuff around your schedule and don't try to essentially don't overachieve yourself. So do as much as you can because you know your own limits.
Okay, yeah, that's very, very fair. Gianna, do you have anything on that subject? On limiting how many projects you do per day?
Yeah, I would firstly say to only audition for a project that you are very interested in, because you don't want to just do things willy-nilly, because then the director isn't getting what they want from you, because you're obviously not invested and you're not doing something you love. Like, the whole point is to do it because we like it. And another thing to take into consideration, I think, is how your availability is, because if you audition for like 20 projects a day and say all the deadlines like for when the casting is nearby, like near next to each other, um what if you end up getting cast in like 10 of those projects and they're all like ongoing things that you need to be dedicated to? So it's like you have to be careful with your availability. Don't always assume you're like gonna get cast, but I mean it's probably good to assume that you're going to get the part, so just try to be smart about it, I would say.
And as a general rule for anyone out there listening, I've found with people that I've talked to about casting rates, it's usually about 1 in 60 or 70 parts that you audition for that you actually get if you're out there actively auditioning for. Now, if you're tailoring for your own voice, like exactly what you think you're going to get and doing way fewer auditions, there's a way higher chance that you're going to get them. But if you're throwing out auditions like 5, 10 a day, as a general rule, I found it's usually about 60 or 70
Hmm.
just because of director preferences, things like that. But that being said, still do assume that you're going to get the part because otherwise, in a week, you're going to have 60 parts. Every director decided you were the best thing on the planet, and you're going to be just drowning in auditions and
I just
parts and projects.
Yeah, I just pictured like a hand coming out of like a pile of scripts. Like, no.
It's like the opposite problem of what most people face is where you have
Yeah.
too many projects rather than too
Basically.
few. Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael, what's your rule of thumb about that auditioning for how many projects to audition for per day?
I mean, the short answer is No, there's not a limit, but that comes with a really important caveat where you shouldn't audition for more than you can handle. I mean, some people can only really handle one project at a time, which is totally fair. But it also kind of comes down to, whether you've got like a big 70-page stack of lines that you have to get through, or if it's just, you know, 2 pages for like a short, a short, you know, like a short movie. I know I got something like that recently, and that only took me about like 2 hours to record and edit and submit. So that's a no-brainer and something that I could have handled probably, you know, three more of those projects on top of what I've already got right now. So, don't limit, like just keep in mind the commitment for each project you're auditioning for, because otherwise you're gonna find you're swamped in work, which isn't a bad thing, but it is a bad thing, is basically what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, and I think it also has partly partly how many you audition for has to do with what status you are as a voice actor. For example, like if you're a hobbyist, you can go out there and audition for everything all day long and it's generally going to be fine. Whereas even though I do more audiobooks than actual voice acting, I have to be a little more picky about what I audition for because I can't be swamped with all these unpaid jobs since the voice acting is part of my income. I have to be conscious of doing a fair amount of paid auditions so that I know that I'm not going to just be starving, but hey, I'm playing Jimmy in this thing, so that's fine.
You got Jimmy?
Yeah, I got
Oh,
Jimmy. I know you were rooting for me,
oh,
man. I know.
damn. I tried out for Jimmy. Dang it.
Well,
Aw.
better luck next time, man. Better luck. Okay, and this next question I'm going to point to you, Michael. Should you focus on a combination of projects whenever you're auditioning, or should you stick with things that you're more comfortable with? You feel like you fit that type of character a little more.
Again, that depends on the person. I'm honestly the type of person where I find I only really go for projects that I think will fit with me personally. Like, I have a deep voice. I don't really have the ability to go super high and do like a child voice per se. So I will never go for a project where that's the highlight. Like, honestly, most of the parts that I've tried out for that are character related are either villains or like, middle-aged adults, because I find that those reads are something that feel much more natural for me to do. And something that I don't have to constantly be working for now. Now, that's not to say that I won't try and do like a child voice in the future. Just right now, that's not something I'm comfortable with. You know, Submitting an audition for people to see, because that would probably end any chance that anyone would hire me. So,
Oh yeah, well that's upsetting. I was looking forward to seeing you as Mickey Mouse soon, but I know
uh,
that I always like outside of the actual audition process, if I find an audition that's something that I'm not comfortable with, I'll just save that audition, not actually submit something to it, but I'll read through those lines, like have them saved in my own personal library on my computer so I can develop that voice through a character that actually has it
I don't know if you've
so that
seen
at a later day.
the movie In a World, uh, where yeah, that the main character in that movie, that's what she does. She'll literally take a tape recorder and record random people throughout her day so that she can nail down their uh, accent and way of talking. I think that's something that is actually would be helpful for people if a little weird, you know.
Yeah,
Huh.
I'll be a little creepy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's It's actually really
It
interesting.
is really interesting.
Yeah.
Could also probably get you arrested though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you have a tape recorder on me? Oh, I'm trying to nail down your accent.
Yeah, to
Don't
be
mind me.
fair, I think in a lot of states it is illegal to record someone without them knowing. So keep that in mind, everybody.
Yeah.
If you're in LA,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
legal though. Don't worry about it.
Oh, is it?
I don't know. I'm
I
just
thought
assuming.
I thought I actually remember hearing that it wasn't. So be careful.
Wow. Okay. And moving on from that, how about you, Civil? How do you approach it? Do you do a combination, or do you just kind of stick with what you know?
It's really difficult because I'm more on the hobby side of stuff, although I do push for paid things a decent amount. But I I this is gonna sound really weird. I get really uncomfortable when I get comfortable. So like when
Okay.
I get a niche and I know what I'm doing, and I'm comfortable with doing that kind of stuff, it then makes me uncomfortable at the same time. So it's weird. So although I can't do kid stuff at all right now, at least, probably never, but still, I try and push myself as much as I can when I do audition. So because that's a personal thing. I find that I get really uncomfortable when I find that niche where I'm like, okay, yes, I'm gonna be able to just fly through all this stuff.
That honestly makes sense to me.
Okay.
And I had a basketball coach, and this was uh, always what he said that kind of has stuck with me throughout life. It's be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's basically means don't ever just get stuck in a rut and, always try and do better, and I commend you for doing that. Uh, I definitely want to try and, approach that too with voice acting.
It takes a lot to go for those parts that you aren't necessarily comfortable with. I know a lot of times I just get stuck in this little rut of, oh, well, I'm going to audition for this guy because I think I can get him. When sometimes maybe stepping out would be the better choice.
Well, I mean, a great way to do that is to just lose all your self-respect, and then you can just do anything and not care about the consequences.
Done and done, my friend. Don't worry.
Because I've lost my self-respect very quickly. I'm very young for most people here, and I just don't care anymore. So it's like I can just kind of do whatever, and whatever happens, happens.
Make an alt
Good.
account on the internet and try it with that.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Good advice, everyone. Lose your self-respect. That's how you become a voice
Yeah,
actor.
do illegal things and lose all self-respect.
End of podcast. That's all the advice you need.
Thanks
You
for
don't have to
tweeting
do
it.
illegal things to lose your self-respect. I'm a legal person.
Okay, and
Like the
how
great
about
Shia
you?
LaBeouf. Just do it.
Yeah. Just get rid of it.
And we digress. Okay. How about you, Gianna? What do you do as far as whether you do a variety of different characters or stick with what you know?
I think that in ways I am still discovering the range of my voice and everything that it can do. So every now and then when I'm looking at a casting call, I'll see some characters where it's like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I could do that, whatever. And sometimes I'll find one that I'm like, I don't know, but it kind of looks like fun. Like maybe I'll push myself there because I think that the only way that we'll be able to see what our full range is, that I'm sure continues to grow as we grow as actors. Um, the only way to get there is to push yourself. So I like to push myself sometimes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Kind of stick with what you know, but also reach out there in the process of doing that.
Yeah. Like I've streamed Doki Doki Literature Club, and I remember I opened it up, I started the stream, and I'm like, oh, the main character's a guy. Like I need to do some sort of dude voice. So I just like deepened my voice as far as I could, and that was the dude voice. So it was in front of, however many people decided to stop by my stream, but that was me like live testing different voices. So in a way, I was like super nervous to do it, but it's pushing myself, just trying to practice and get better.
Gianna, you should have rung me up. I would have played Brad and
Yeah,
Art. Yeah.
I should have.
Oh yeah, and that's. I'm sorry. What were you saying, Michael?
I was just going to say I do a great uncaring jerk. So, yeah.
Well, that's basically you, but.
He's not
Oh
wrong.
my God. Oh.
I joke. Yeah, and What Gianna just said is actually a really good tip from me as someone who does audiobooks more so than voice acting. If you're going to get into the world of audiobooks, a lot of people who want their books published, she was talking about how she kind of went into that deeper voice for the man. Now, don't take this advice necessarily for character acting, but a lot of audiobook producers, what they really want is for the men, whenever they're playing women, to not actually try to sound like a woman, but to just have a more effeminate, lighter tone to their voice. And for women, whenever there's a male character in the book, to just kind of deepen their voice a little bit, try to get a little more gravelly, to give that impression that you're playing the opposite gender without actually sounding like that idiot that's reading an audiobook and decides that you're just gonna totally switch on them if you're not that great at it.
You're a wizard, Harry.
That was really good, Michael. I almost believed you were a man for a second there.
Oh,
Wonderful.
that was my impression of a bad audiobook read. So you're welcome, audience.
Wow. Okay, and with that, we're going to move on to the next segment, which is the attitude you should approach auditions with. And I'm going to start this one off with you, Michael, and we're going to kind of put it under one big umbrella question. Just how should you present yourself? Confidently? Are you going to be humble, not let your talent get to you? What are your do's and don'ts on this subject?
Shower, part your hair, brush your teeth. No. You know, a lot of people, be yourself. You know, I'm fun on this podcast, guys. I'm a lot of fun. I do try and present myself as professionally as possible. You know, when I'm making a first impression, that means, getting like a very business-like tone of voice and being very matter of fact. Just because that's kind of how I approach some sort of position. It's work. That doesn't mean, you can't be fun. God, I know so many voice actors, like probably the top 12 voice actors working in the industry today. They have really fun personalities. Like you see Tara Platt, Yuri Lowenthal, Nolan North, Troy Baker. They're very personable people when you meet them. Through like fan conventions or even on like just video, they're very easygoing, fun to be around. I would say that's probably the best way to present yourself. Be professional, but also try and don't be totally cold and unapproachable. Encourage everyone, be fun, be yourself.
Oh, yeah. And if you watch a lot of the outtakes from different anime and things like that, there are so many different takes in those, in the blooper sections, where voice actors just saw something going on the screen and they're like, I'm going to make a joke right here. It'll be hilarious. And they just, in the middle of actually this big professional recording, they'll just completely stay in character while they're doing it, but say a line that doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Like
The Oron High School Host Club bloopers are one of my favorites for that.
oh yeah,
They did a
like,
lot of silly stuff.
Yeah, I was watching the Full Metal Alchemist bloopers just last week actually, and there was one scene in it where they're just walking down the hall and Ed goes, I can sense it too. I can sense where they are. And then the person behind him is just like, wait, you can feel their presence near you? And he goes, no, I'm a man. I'm good with directions.
Yeah, Vic Mignon is hilarious.
Oh, he's so good. Anyway, now you, Gianna, what do you like to do? Do you go in with confidence, try to be humble whenever you're auditioning? Your do's and don'ts on this subject.
I do agree with what Mike said about being personable and friendly and yourself. Always let yourself shine through. And I know that that's, again, I'm like such a cliche today, but I think that that's very,
Follow your dreams. Be yourself.
Yeah, don't let your memes be dreams. No, but I think that you should always walk in with confidence, because one of the big things I learned, especially like in the music world, if you don't take yourself seriously, then no one's going to take you seriously. So you kind of have to believe that you are worth the part, like, and you are, a skilled enough actor for the role, so that, that shines through in your delivery, and hopefully it works out.
Be unconfident, just loser of a guy, you can still hear in the audition that I'm confident in what I'm saying. I'm not just some loser saying the lines and hoping that me being a loser is what got me the part.
Right, right, right.
You believe
Yeah,
you're the
there's
character. You aren't necessarily the character. There's
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I see what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying.
It's not about being yourself. I don't know how to word this exactly. It's not about being that loser. It's about
Empathizing with
making
them.
yourself be that loser while it's still being obvious that you're a character and you could switch, because that's the easiest way. Is if you just go for characters that are yourself, that's the easiest way to get typecast, because people are going to be like, "Oh, well, he just kind of plays himself, so
Mhm.
why don't we just cast him as that?" If you can make it obvious that you can snap out of that character at any moment while still making that character believable, that's whenever you're going to get all the different roles.
I'd say, yeah, empathy is an important skill to have in acting. And it sounds like, that's how you made the wimpy character your own. You aren't necessarily the wimpy guy. I know you're a very confident person in real life.
Oh, au contraire, my friend.
No, but you feel for the character. You understand where he's coming from, and that's what you got to do. You know, Method acting is a whole different beast, and there's only very few people in the world who can make that work. Gary Oldman is probably the one person that comes to mind who's probably the greatest method actor of all time. Honestly, no two roles of his are the same, and he looks different in every single movie he's in. But even that's hard to live when you try and become the character.
Yeah.
It's not really healthy psychologically. The best way to go about it is to empathize as best you can and try and portray that.
And did you happen to see, I think it's probably still on Netflix, that documentary of Jim Carrey when he played Andy? Oh God, I'm forgetting his name and now I'm embarrassed. But I think it's called Jim and Andy, and he was method acting the entire duration of the film, and the crew was like, they could hardly put up with it. And I think it took them like, what, 25 years to release the footage, because they didn't want Jim to be hated in Hollywood, because it was that horrible. It was such an interesting watch. I highly recommend it.
Wow, I know what I'm
Actually,
doing
yeah,
after this.
I saw that. Yeah, no, that was like you feel bad because Jim Carrey's like he's such a personable guy, but yeah, that's like definitely the dangers of method acting right there,
Hmm.
front and center.
Does anyone know if Tommy Wiseau's a method actor? I'm just curious.
Honestly,
He's
I
a
believe
goddamn great method
he
actor.
became the character of God, what was his character in The Room? But I honestly just think he hasn't broken character for 20 years since
He's
he made The Room.
the ultimate method actor. He is dedicated, like,
For life.
until I get a new character, I'm this guy for life.
I'm pretty sure he made a new movie recently where he pretty much just plays the same character.
I feel like that's all people want to see from him now, because that's what he's known for. That's like, it's kind of a meme at this point,
Since The
really.
Room, for some reason, became a cult hit because the internet got a hold of it. Like,
Yeah,
his
I mean,
his career's just kind of stepped up.
Oh
he
my
said
God.
he would be interested in being in a new Star Wars film. I'd love to see him as a Jedi.
He's got an audition tape for the Joker.
Yeah, the
I
funnier
saw that.
dog, that was amazing. Oh my God.
Wow. Okay,
I'm
yeah,
the Joker.
yeah, and you, Civil, what are your do's and don'ts? Come in with confidence, be humble. What kind of stuff do you do when you're auditioning?
It's very similar to everyone else. You want to definitely get as much of yourself across as possible because they're gonna aside from looking for the correct voice and stuff like that, they're gonna look for people because they're not gonna want to pick someone who seems like a complete douchebag. But
Yeah.
in, I guess, slight difference, I'd say you need to go in with an edge, like a very small edge of arrogance, because if you can be confident as all hell, but if you're sat there not thinking you're like that, that can be a turnoff for people because they might be like, oh, they might not feel they're 100%, blah, blah, blah. They might not feel all the way into it, so they might drop out. If you have an edge of arrogance to a point where you're like, I know what I'm doing, I know I'm good at it, but then I'm not also going to, you don't also rub it in everyone's faces. I feel like that's a better blend of person.
I guess
Oh yeah.
I I might just have a different definition of arrogance than you do. Because to me, arrogance is overbearing. I think confidence is something where you believe in yourself and your abilities, and it sounds like that's what you're saying. But just correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's just, a British thing. We describe arrogance differently to you guys. To us, arrogance is very much
Oh,
like
you're
you can be
you're
confident.
explaining arrogance to the American. I see.
Yes, I
Okay.
am.
Oh,
Yeah.
You
you're
can be confident
British?
in your.
What?
Oh, what a bloody guess! But like arrogance, at least I guess to me, is when you know you're better than everyone else, and then you're rubbing it in their faces. If you can come across that you're confident in yourself, but you also know how good you are, but then you're not kind of being like, "Hey, look at me! I'm the goddamn best! I'm like Jesus, but for voice acting." Like it's better than being really humble and being like, no, 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 these people are so much better than this. Like, have an edge of arrogance to you because it also makes you seem, I guess, a bit more interesting, to put it like that.
Oh yeah, and I know that personally I've seen some directors that cast one person over another because they had that little edge to them. So the director said, "Well, this is a person that when I'm not exactly sure what the character is going to do or what I want them to do, this person can make that decision for me, and I can either say yay or nay to it once they've made the decision. Whereas this person is going to just sit back and say, well, I'm going to wait until you make the decision and tell me what the character's supposed to do." So directors like people that are willing to put their own ideas into the character, but also be open to the director saying, no, I don't like that. Try something different.
Well, I think it's a very fine line for me personally, because you get a reputation, through how you act. Auditions are one thing, but actually being a part of a production and having a touch of arrogance can ruin your reputation. Like when you think of Christian Bale, he's a great actor. I've loved every movie I've seen him in, but he just has a reputation for being hard to work with. So me personally, I think it sounds like what you guys are saying is be confident and assertive, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend you be arrogant. To me that's just that's one of those character traits in people I personally will immediately kind of turn me off from wanting to interact with them, because I think I personally don't think that any of us are quote unquote the best, but it's all about trying to you know sell yourself as much as you can, not in an overbearing, arrogant way.
Probably doesn't help that I'm mainly inspired by pro wrestling, where they kind of have to be really arrogant. So,
Oh,
you know,
but that's over the top. That's pro wrestling is
not
a
all the
whole
time.
other
Okay,
deal.
some stuff is, but most of it isn't. They just kind of have to portray that kind of stuff, and that's mainly what I'm inspired by.
John Cena, the wrestler, is very different from John Cena, the actor. Honestly, he's like him as a person is someone I would want to, you know, hang out with. But him as a wrestler, I would be scared as hell
Why?
to
As
face
a
off
wrestler,
against him.
like I watch wrestling. Like I wouldn't want to fight the dude. Like generally, he'd like murder me like twice. But like as a dude, even as a character, he's one of those. I don't want to get too much into wrestling, but okay, make it very simple. In wrestling, people say the best way to portray yourself and to make people care about you is to just be yourself, turn up to 110.
Yeah, and I would say that's the medium of wrestling in a nutshell.
It is just turn
Yeah.
yourself, like, get what you are and just push.
It's like you amplify a character trait up to, quote, Spinal Tap, up to 11, man. And it's
Why not just make 10 louder?
but this one is 11. I'll admit this to you guys, guilty pleasure time. I love Alison Brie, star of Community and Mad Men. She has a new Netflix show called Glow, which is about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. And that's basically what they talk about in that is you're amplifying the character traits in wrestling beyond what's really normal or expected to make it entertaining. So, Civil, I totally get your point where you're coming from with the wrestling right there.
Because at least in wrestling, the people who are most cared about by fans, like, I'm not going to get into this, but like, if you know who wrestling is, like Daniel Bryan, people care about him so much because he is just himself. You feel and connect with him so easily.
Yeah, but even then, the villains in wrestling are always much more interesting than the quote-unquote American heroes, unless you're Hulk Hogan.
Then you're just a racist.
Yeah, then you're a racist and really disappointing, honestly. But
although apparently he didn't talk to the company again. I don't know. He might come back soon. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
Wow. Okay. So, everyone listening, go be a professional wrestler now that you know
No,
all
it
the
hurts.
details of how to
It's
do it.
painful.
It will help you if you're an arrogant person to get better
Yeah.
auditions, guys.
Yeah. And a quick
yeah,
recap on this last little segment, since we kind of went in all kinds of different directions, touched on a lot of subjects. Basically, be confident in your auditions. Don't be a jerk once you actually get the part. If you're going to be a jerk, keep it to the character. Don't be that in real life.
Be professional for first impression and only be fun on podcasts like this, guys.
Oh, yeah. Okay, and then our last segment, which is all about auditioning for a character that you wouldn't normally. Question that I'm going to present to you guys is, do you all challenge yourself to go for characters you wouldn't normally to see what you're capable of? Do you do it to avoid being typecast? And how do you deal with typecasting if you ever get typecast? And I'm going to point this one first at you, Giana.
As far as being typecast goes, I don't know that I've ever been typecast because I feel like I go all out with like trying to do a range of things that I'm not really cast as like the same voice repeatedly. Like I have one where I'm doing my English accent and then a few singing roles and one's a narration role. So it's like things are kind of, a range of things. But I like I said earlier, I do like to try to push myself because I think that's the only way I'll really find my range as an actor and, fully discover my voice.
Don't let yourself get typecast. That's the key. From the very start, just don't let it happen.
Yeah.
What about you, Civil? Do you challenge yourself to do things that you don't think necessarily you're capable of? Do you ever get typecast, and how do you deal with that?
I got typecast a lot early on, which is pretty much a year ago I rebranded myself and got rid of all the other stuff because I was getting typecast completely, and I hated it. It's the worst thing, and it doesn't help when you're British and people just want to choose you anyway. But like at that point, especially when you have something like a British accent, which does make you more typecastable, I guess, you very much need to push yourself. And although I kind of do that anyway, because as I said earlier, getting comfortable makes me uncomfortable, so I push away from it. You need to push yourself to kind of get better, and also to avoid getting in stupid situations like being typecast to a point where, like myself, you need to rebrand everything, get rid of your old name, and like start again.
Oh yeah, I understand that. And anyone who's an American director or writer out there listening, please stop writing stereotypical characters for anyone who's British or Australian or any other culture.
Believe it or not, I don't eat croissants every single day.
You don't have a monocle and twirl a mustache? Oh, I'm so disappointed. So
No, I have glasses because I'm blind, and I can't grow facial hair to save my life.
But you do drink tea every day, right?
I had a cup of tea today, actually. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but please, everybody,
That bit
don't
might be
write
true,
those
but
characters.
there's no
This is a
monocle.
PSA. Millions of British voice actors every day are typecast. Please, please feel their pain.
Just
Yeah, they can
for 25 cents a day.
they can do more than Monty Python, I promise.
Or just
That's
a
coming to
generic
Netflix. Oh my god. I'm so excited.
Guarantee
Wow.
we won't get it.
Okay,
Really?
yeah. And I know that I personally do get typecast quite a bit just because of my voice. Like one time I did this YouTube channel, this smaller YouTube channel paid me to do their little voiceover for their intro, and it was one of those things that starts out with like in a world. And then like the next week I got like 40 emails from all these 12-year-olds on not Netflix, on YouTube that were just like, "Can you do my intro?" I'm like, "Why do you have a YouTube channel? You're 12. What are you talking about?"
Pretty sure you're allowed a YouTube channel at 12. What's the age limit for
Man,
those things?
is that a really growing market? The 12-year-old YouTuber? Gotta look into
It's,
that. Yeah.
Hell
it's
yeah.
all I watch.
Oh,
Are
it
you
sounds
saying
good.
you don't watch Dove?
You don't watch Donkey? Oh, Donkey's amazing.
I only
Jacob
watch
Sartorius.
12-year-olds and this podcast. Those are my two
So,
things.
so only 12-year-olds still?
Yeah, pretty much.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but to get out of that little rut of 12-year-olds emailing me, well, first of all,
God.
I said, "Are you going to pay me?" And they said no, and I said, "Sorry. I can't do it." Because I didn't have time for every 12-year-old in the world to email me and ask for me to do a voiceover for them.
What an
But
ending.
yeah, yeah. But then as far as getting out of that, I also just, go audition for things that aren't that stereotypical voice, like reading audiobooks, the ultimate typecast. I'm going to stop talking now before I get any sadder about my typecasting.
Just rebrand
And
for me.
I like my
He literally
audiobooks.
just rebranded too, with his YouTube and Twitch.
That's true. I did just rebrand myself.
Jesus.
Yeah, but what about you, Michael? Do you challenge yourself to do things you wouldn't normally do? Do you get typecast? How do you deal with that?
I'm gonna be edgy here, guys. No, I really don't. I go for things that I'm personally comfortable with doing. I find that, specifically for character work, that is, it in that genre, I will only go for very specific type of character. Like I said, I am normally either a villain or like the serious adult for character reads, but the direction's out for other genres like commercials, narration, and promos, like Colin was talking about. That's a whole other beast. I don't think you can really consider yourself typecast for those specific genres just because they're so varied and there's a huge variety of voice work available in commercial and audiobooks specifically. Like audiobooks they're a growing market. Like Audible basically launched from Amazon into this giant service that millions of people are using right now. I think the last thing I read was something like there's over like 9 million audiobooks. I haven't fact checked this, so again, crucify me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I mean, I think when you're reading an audiobook, you have to have a range in order to really portray dialogue specifically. Otherwise, people won't find it interesting. But again, for characters, I only really go for like very specific types. I don't shotgun for like every single part just because I want to do that. If a project looks interesting but it doesn't have a part for me, then unfortunately I'm not going to be able to try out for it. And that's just kind of the reality of voice work, in my opinion.
And I think that all kind of depends also on your comfort level with what you want to do with your voice. For instance, Michael is a little more reserved about his voice, and he's comfortable with that. It works. It works really well. I'm glad that you're going with that and you're happy to do that. Whereas some people just want to try to branch out and every single day come out with a new voice, even if it's really an unattainable goal. It's all about what you want to do, where you want to get with your voice work. And if you're someone out there who's looking to not actually be this voice actor known for, like, oh, look at his variety. He's basically Robin Williams. He can do literally any voice. If you want to be someone who's reading audiobooks, doing commercials, doing those things that are basically the same voice, that's wonderful. We need more of that, honestly, because everybody these days thinks that they're going to be the next huge voice actor who gets every single part. So it's nice to have those people that are more down to earth and want to do one specific niche.
I was talking to a friend last night. He's been in the voice acting industry for a while. And he basically said the A-list jobs are basically reserved for the same 12 people. That includes like animation and video games, which are probably the number one most desired jobs for voice actors looking for work. So the reality is that you have to find another avenue if you want to get your foot in the voice acting industry. Otherwise, it's you can of course do. There's tons of hobbyist projects like uh, you can check Reddit and casting call for all and be able to do those no problem. But character specific work is very hard to come by, and you have to be realistic because I'd say 90% of most voice acting work is going to be in genres other than video games or animation. And you gotta keep that in mind and realize that if you're looking for a hobby or if you're looking for paying work, basically is what I'm saying. I'm the type of person where, like Colin was saying, I go for the quote unquote signature sound, which is my speaking voice. I can play around with pitch, tone, and I can make it gravelly or much warmer feeling, but generally I am trying to refine my personal speaking voice because I think it's much more important to nail that for voice acting rather than coming up with a million different voices that you don't practice with every day.
Oh, yeah. And if you can develop basically your demo reel worth of voices, 5 to 10 voices that you do really, really well, you're much more likely to land a job than if you can do 80 or 90 voices kind of half heartedly and not really with a developed character at all. That's another thing to touch on, like Michael was saying, the same few people get all the big parts in all the industries that everybody wants. And you can try and try and try all day to get to land those parts, but the reality is that most directors in those industries are going to hire those same people, whether they're the best for the part or not, just because they know them, they've worked with them before. That's the person that they're always going to go for, even if you're a million times better, even if you literally are the person the character was based off of, they still have a better chance than you.
I think the way to think about it is that would you rather hire some unknown or would you rather hire the person that you've been working with for years and years? And it makes sense. It may not be fair, but I think you want someone who's reliable more than uh, you know, some unknown that you're taking a chance on. So again, you got to get established, got to get your foot in the door before you try and go for the big time because you're not going to get there in a day.
Yeah, and it seems like kind of a sad note to end on, but on the bright side, there are still tons and tons and tons of other jobs out there that you can go for in the voice industry. You just have to look for them and realize what's realistic. Like, you can still get the video game jobs, you can still get the anime jobs. You're just probably not going to get your foot in the door at Funimation today. But if you keep working and working at it and taking those smaller jobs, eventually there's a good chance that you will.
I totally agree with that. I think we're all just starting out here. This is our road, our journey to really trying to become voice actors. We're all kind of approaching it very differently. And that's just that's my opinion, guys. I would love to hear discussion on this topic, honestly, because I feel like, I don't hold, you know, my opinion is not fact. I think there's definitely people who can come at this with different perspectives on how they'd want to make it in the industry, because we're all trying. And the reality is that there's a demand for voiceover talent, not necessarily in animation and video games, but audiobooks are a great way to start. That actually will give you a lot of like skill just with your speaking voice and your ability to breathe life into character dialogue. So I highly recommend, going for it, trying to get those audiobook jobs because they need you.
Yeah, and just remember, everybody out there listening, nothing that any of us says is gospel. God, please don't take everything I say to the bank. You will fail so quickly. But we're just here to give you our ideas, our approaches to this whole voice acting adventure. You go down whichever avenues you feel work best for you, because if we all took the exact same approach to voice acting, every single one of us would fail, because you can't make it off of doing literally the exact same thing as everybody else. It's all about bringing your own unique approach to it. So take what we say with a grain of salt. If it's good advice, keep it. If you don't think it works for you, toss it out. None of us will take it personally. None of us will know if you don't tell us. So,
If you do disagree with us, comment below and tell us why.
yeah, we would love to have discussions. Like, we will all see probably the comments in this video if you're commenting. So, if you have any questions about anything we're saying, want us to elaborate, want us to talk with you personally about it, just let us know. We love having conversations about voice work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on this podcast. With that being said, I think that's about all we've got for today. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, have everybody plug their social media and all really quickly, and then we will be done for the day. I'm your host, Collin, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Collin Mays, VA. That's COLLINMAYES. VA is in voice actor. Or you can follow me on YouTube or Twitch at Logiconic, LOGICONIK. And Giana?
Hi, I'm all over the place, so get ready. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 3 of season 2 of the Road to Becoming a Voice Actor podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Giana Lynn Music, on Instagram at Giana Makes Music, Twitch/Anna Yume, and Spotify, Giana Lynn. Thank you so much.
And Civil?
Hi, this has been fun. Follow me on Twitter at ObeySpeaker, and then, subscribe to my YouTube, Civil Speaks. Also remember, if you're having struggle voice acting, just do 12-year-old YouTube intros. It works.
It does. It's the gold mine right there. Go for it.
It's a
Great
burgeoning
niche.
market, everyone.
Wonderful. And finally, Michael?
Hey, everyone. I'm Michael Alio, and you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at the Mike and Knight. The link will be in the description below on our YouTube channel, which is RTBVA Crew. And right now, my website is under construction, but that will be live soon, and you can check me out there. And also, I'm on Twitch, guys. I'm at ADaywalker. I have fun playing being really horrible at hard games. Check it out, have fun. I'll be doing that a lot more lately, and hope to see you there.
Okay, wonderful. And with that being said, we are going to sign off for the day. Thank you all so much for listening on whatever platform you're on. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and comment there. If you're not, go ahead and jump over to YouTube, because that's what we'll see. That's where we'll be looking for your comments.
Or
Thank
tweet
you so
us.
much for listening. Yeah, hopefully. Thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 3 of season 2 of The Road to Becoming a Voice Actor, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.